Hello and welcome back to the Christian Reeve podcast. Today's guest is returning. It's back-to-back episodes, baby. Podcaster, writer, and philosopher Jack. Sezer.
Sezer, there you go. Yeah,
Got it.
perfect.
Fucking nailed it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's all downhill from here. No.
and soon we just got to get you to stop calling me a philosopher.
You are. Look, okay,
I'm not.
okay.
I am not.
It paints a picture, I think, in people's minds. They just think of like what Aristotle on a fucking stairwell, some stairwell. They didn't have stairwells then. On a plinth,
Yeah,
talking to the masses, going, "Listen, my people, this is what it means to be alive." Like anyone can philosophize.
Yeah.
I was chatting with a friend at a pub the other
Yeah,
day,
that's true.
and
Anyone can.
he was like, "Oh, I like it when you come in, or fellas like yourself, because we can actually have a proper conversation. It's not just the standard like, oh yeah, let's get fucked up, let's chat about tits
Yes.
and arse or some shit. I don't know, well, which wouldn't be an interesting conversation, but there you go. Right?
Sometimes.
It's a 2 second conversation. It's oh, she looks fine.
Yes, it is.
Oh, cool. Do you agree? Yeah. No. Oh, no. Really? Oh, what do you like? Okay, and then you're done.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? When you're 14, that's the most interesting conversation of all
Yeah,
time.
that's that is philosophy right
Yeah,
there for a
100%.
14-year-old.
Yeah.
That is for a 14.
It's the
absolutely.
age-old question. Tits or art? Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
or face. And then when you're really trying to impress your friends, when you're really claiming the moral high ground, you say it's personality. That's what you do.
well, okay. If we're going to really talk it, all jokes aside, with me with the ladies, it's always been this. The first thing I notice is eyes. They say eyes are the window to the soul.
Mm-hmm.
And eye contact, man, that's how you know that someone's into you. And you're like, oh, hello. Okay, you're looking at me like that. Interesting. And I don't know. I was always a bit kind of on and off with women. Like I would say I'm good with women. I have been good with women, but like when I was younger, I had less confidence. So I just sometimes just stare women out. Like not in a like creepy way, but just I wouldn't know what to do. And I remember there was one girl that literally turned around to me and she's just like, why you keep staring at me? Why don't you just fucking ask me out or something? I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah,
like what?
yeah.
Like I don't know. And then I just realized you can talk, and that's all you have to do. You don't have to flirt.
You can
just talk.
Yeah. A lot of times that's just what they want. Yeah. I'm good with a woman. Not so much the women anymore.
I'm so confused.
Yeah, now that I'm
what you
married.
want about?
Now that I'm married.
Oh, the woman. Okay, now I
Yeah.
understand. Right.
Yeah.
The lady. Yes. Same. I'm happily in a relationship,
But
and I know what you mean. Yeah.
but eye contact is strange. Eye contact is a very weird thing that we do because it can be so many things. It can be seductive. It can also be an
Threatening.
attack.
Yeah.
It can be concerned. It can eye contact it really can relay the whole message that you're trying to give to someone. It's awkward for me on the camera because if I look straight into the camera, I can't see you. But if I look into your eyes right now, you can't look into my eyes.
Yeah,
So it's awkward. But I remember I was listening to someone I'm a big fan of, Sam Harris, and he was speaking about when he was younger and he was learning about consciousness and sort of the social cohesion with other people with consciousness. He was talking about eye contact being this just completely odd thing, and he went to a social setting and he decided he's just going to stare at this one guy and he's not going to break eye contact with him because why should you be scared of eye contact? There's no verbal message done in it, and so he's just calmly staring at this individual. Of course, the guy ends up getting mad, and they have to end up talking it out. But it's really strange. I mean,
how do you work that out? Like, that would be so bollocks. I'm sorry. Like, why are you staring at me? I'm doing a social experiment. What?
Well, I don't know. It's just, I think the proper question is, what's wrong with me staring at you? I don't know.
What's right with you staring at me?
Of town. Well, see, but maybe nothing. But to be upset about it is
generally
odd.
it's one or two. It's either you want to fuck me or fight me. That's it.
But what the question we need to ask is why? Where did that come from? Because
Mm.
if you go to the wrong part of town, this has to be globally, but especially here, if you stare at someone for more than 2 seconds, they'll say, "What the fuck is wrong with you? What do you
Mhm.
want?" And so, oh my gosh, geez. Sometimes I'd just be looking in someone's general direction. And so, but you got me on a tangent on eye contact now. But
You know that saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
mhm.
When I look at something like that, to me, it's like it's just the animal kingdom. It's never changed. I would imagine when we were cavemen, same principle. Oh, we have
Eye
a. I
contact
want.
was
Yeah,
a,
I want a mate. Da 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 da.
or I want to kill you.
Yeah, like I'm gonna fight you for this mate, or to intimidate animals. Animals do it too. Dogs. If you stare at a dog for too long, it starts to get really
Mm-hmm.
wound up. It's like what? It's a challenge.
Yeah,
Supposedly,
yeah, yeah,
if you do that, you are challenging the dog.
yeah.
That's why they always say if you're
But
scared of
even
dogs,
when you're
avoid
not trying to
opens.
mate, though, it's the polite thing to do. Even when you're not trying to stick it in someone, that's still
Well, it's different with
when you go to
humans
the
though.
checkout at the store or with a friend. I don't want to fight you, and trust me, Christian, I'm not trying to have sex with you right now, but I will keep staring at you.
Well, it's okay. So we've kind of deviated from, I guess, from nature in that sense, haven't we? So like,
Hmm.
the natural thing is if you're talking to someone, you should look them in the eyes and give them eye contact. But like, it's unsettling. Like, okay, I've never spoken about this actually, but quick story. So, I was on a school trip. I would have
They're gonna
been.
start mowing the grass right behind me,
Oh,
and
love
this
it.
is gonna
Love
be
it.
miserable.
Fantastic.
Uh,
Let's go. I can't.
this
It's
shouldn't be
Listen,
long.
it's noise cancellation. I won't hear it. Just like I didn't hear the cars
Okay,
that you spoke
good.
about yesterday. It's
Okay,
fine.
good, good,
Don't
good.
worry. It's going to be okay.
I get anxious about these things.
Oh, me too, man. Me too. But it's okay.
Well,
I
carry
got
on.
you.
Yeah,
I got you.
good. I feel
Does it make
safe.
you feel better when I said this?
Yeah, I feel safe. This is my safe space.
Oh, that's
The
nice.
lawnmower can't get me in here.
Your chances of being killed by a lawnmower are never certain. It could happen.
They're
Yeah.
never zero. They're never
Yeah, exactly.
zero.
That's
So,
what I
yeah.
was looking for. Yeah. So, right, 15, 16, studying business at school, on a trip. We're going to. It was really weird. It was like a business mini conference thing with a few speakers. One of the speakers was this woman. I think her name's Gabby Logan. She's a famous sports presenter. Really tall lady. Really nice as well, which was cool. But she's kind of like presenting it, orchestrating it stuff. But the main speakers were from airlines, and we at the time were studying these airlines as case studies or something like that. So it was relevant to what we were doing, and yes, opportunity to pick this guy's brains. I can't remember his name. No, it's gone. Basically, he owned one company, British Airways, and then he, I think, moved. This was either before the acquisition or the move or around the time, but he moved from BA to BAA, which is like a company that, as I understand, like either owns or runs all the different airports in the UK, something like that. So big guy, as in like in that community, in that business community, very successful, etc., etc. Now, physically, now, I don't normally comment on people's appearance, but it's important to this conversation. Physically, he's like 5'7", something like that. And at the time, I still would have been taller. We all were taller. And normally in like a situation like that, someone's higher, shorter than you, you might sort of think about it consciously, like, oh, they're really tall, oh, they're a bit shorter, but then you just carry on
Mhm.
talking, right? Um, all of that disappeared from my head when he just the whole conversation stared into my eyes like he was
Yeah, yeah.
staring into my soul. I asked. I
Hmm.
cut. If you ask me, what did you ask him? I couldn't for the life of you tell you
Yeah.
what I asked, what I said. Um,
Yeah.
like he would speak to me, and I would hear the words, but I was
You felt
mesmerized.
naked.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
deeply unsettling, and everyone in my group that spoke to him said the same
Hmm.
thing. They were like, "This is too much. This is
Hmm.
alarming. This is concerning. This is etc. etc." And the reason I bring this up is that like I understood in that moment that eye contact can be very, very aggressive. Like I knew that growing up in London anyway, the streets of
Hmm.
London. Like you don't, like you said, like same anywhere in the world. Don't challenge people. Don't look at people for too long. It's
Yeah.
just like common sense, street sense, if you like. But this was like on a new
Hmm.
level. This was like I felt like he was challenging me, and I was like, "Why? I'm just some kid. Like, what the fuck?" But then I looked at it like in the wider context of maybe his life. Like, maybe this is something he's learned to assert dominance because he's shorter in stature, so he's had to deal with, I don't know, certain issues in his life. But
Hmm.
then, why does that matter? Because he's family man, successful businessman. Why does this matter? You know. But that's the thing. Some people are never able to get past physicality and they just
Yeah.
focus on what other people say and think about them. So, you know, there's the classic thing of like, oh, he drives a BMW or this big sports car, so he must have a small penis. Haha. You know, like it's the
Yeah.
classic.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sure a lot of that is bollocks, but sometimes it's true. They
No,
say
it is. Yeah.
it's overcompensating.
Hmm.
You know, you said before we were joking back and forth, but personality is important. These things, it is. And I think, if
Yeah.
nothing else, like when it comes to ladies, what they value the most overall, and of course everyone is different, but overall, it's
Yeah.
confidence. You
Hmm.
know, it doesn't matter if you're 5'3" or 6'5". It's confidence. You
Yeah.
have to
I was
be confident in yourself, in your ability, and when you're talking to them.
Yeah, I was speaking with a friend 2 days ago, and I brought up the vestiges of evolution are still very much prevalent in us. The We have advanced much faster than our biology can keep up with society and technology. The Industrial Revolution, you know, if you look at 300 years ago, life was quite different to where we are now. The life expectancy changed drastically. The diets changed drastically. Transportation, sociology, socializing. I mean, it's all changed so quickly. However, evolution moves much significantly slower. You know, instead of dealing in centuries, evolution is dealing not in thousands, but in millions of years. So our biology has not been able to keep up with our synthetic progress. And so, you know, I often tell people you don't want to get rid of your anxiety. Anxiety is a very useful aspect of your biology. You know, anxiety used to happen when you were in the woods and there's dangerous animals around. Well, you know, that's a good anxiety is a good thing to have when you're a primitive ape. But now we get anxiety with exams. Well, the exam's not going to kill you, and the results of that exam will not kill you.
It
Right. So
might.
our bio, yeah, it may be now, right? But our biology is applying itself to situations that it thinks are equivalent to something that it would encounter 400, 500 years ago. And so, you know, you see this. I'm not a biologist. I'm not in the STEM field, but I know the points. I'm not going to speak too much on this, but you know, even in the dating world, we're looking for dominant genes to mate with ours. You know, and confidence is a good sign that your genes will continue on. Um, and it's a very odd world, right? And so there's we shouldn't have an effort to get rid of our biology because fear, depression, anger, anxiety, all these things are very useful to have, even anger and depression. Right? These are all very useful and appropriate responses sometimes, but we just need to be measuring or I guess examining when our biology is kicking in and ask ourselves, is this a glitch in the system? Should I not be applying anxiety to what I'm going to get for dinner tonight. Should I maybe not be applying anxiety to that? It's strange how much of our biology is showing up in our modern lives, and working through what should be there and what shouldn't be there is it can be pretty fun at times.
It's the demands of the time, isn't it? Like as you mentioned, life and humans were very different 100 years ago, 200 years ago, etc. This is why I always find it funny when people criticize the past and go, "Oh, people were horrible. People did this wrong. People did that wrong." And it's like everything has a reason. It's not like people were just, for example, like just born racist or born out of touch with certain things. Like you are a product of your upbringing,
Yeah,
societal demands, social demands, cultural demands of the times. Just everything. Soldiers coming back from war, experiencing PTSD and never really readjusting to life. Well, of course, like you've seen
yeah,
horrors that no man, no human being should ever have to see or face. And we didn't
yeah.
know the effects of it at the time. So, like, something like therapy back then would have been laughed at. It's like, therapy, what? You
Hmm.
can't handle your mind, you go to the insane asylum. Whereas now,
Hmm.
we treat things like that very delicately. We're like, no, this is very serious, and here's why. And all the studies have proven X, Y, Z. But I feel like, and maybe this is controversial, but it's kind of gone like too far the other way. Now it looks like we often try to diagnose things where maybe there isn't a diagnosis necessary. So you brought up anxiety. That's a very good example, right? I have anxiety just like you. In me, it kind of paralyzes me. At its worst, it will paralyze me. And what that looks like is I'll physically, I'll kind of be blown out. I won't really have any energy. I'll be sort of panicking a little bit, so I'll try and calm myself down. Um, I've got enough sense to know that like I've got to just like wait it out and just it'll be all right. But the problem with that is I don't know how long it'll last. It could be an hour, could be 2 days.
Hmm.
Now,
Yeah,
when you look at that within the context of your life, like, well, I've got to go to work, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, and
yeah,
it's distraction. That's fine if like you and I are running a bar, like you can sort of do that with shit going on in your head. Whereas if I'm running like I don't know, I'm operating a crane, let's say, heavy machinery. I need to be focused. I can't have anxiety rampant running control because then what if I make a mistake and I kill someone accidentally because of
yeah,
and like errors are going to happen, but in instances like that, it's even more prevalent. And like I chose not to get medication. I chose not to do that. I chose I've never formally been diagnosed with it, but I know what it is. I've had it since I was a teenager. I looked at it like this. If something is manageable, I'm not going to seek help for it because I have successfully gained control of this thing. I think if
mm,
something is unmanageable and it's actively wreaking havoc in your life and preventing you from living your life, then it's time to get help.
yeah, yeah.
And obviously,
Sounds sane enough.
right, like, and that help looks different in every instance. So maybe it's
Yeah.
medication, maybe it's therapy, could be a combination of both. Who knows? But
Hmm.
what I have seen, and this is more of like a recent in the last 10 years, is you'll see a lot of people self-diagnosing themselves. I mean, I've just done it
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
right? But the
Yeah.
difference is
Hmm.
I've not kind of like if I go to the doctors tomorrow, I'm not going to tell them, "Oh, I know I have this." I'm going to be like,
Yeah.
I feel like I might have this, but you're the doctor. What do you think? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas I see a lot of people now, they self-diagnose themselves. They'll be like, "This is definitely the case," and then they might even start taking actions without consulting a doctor first, and then
Yeah.
it's really
Yeah.
dangerous.
I've seen it as sort of a twofold problem. One is, I think and this is something I'm quite illiterate at, and so I might avoid speaking too much on it, but I do see an increase in professional diagnosing of some of these conditions, anxiety, PTSD,
Mm.
depression. I do see a lot of I see an increase in the clinical diagnosing, as you mentioned, I also see a ridiculous amount of self-diagnosis, and that makes it extremely complicated. The professional diagnosing makes a lot of sense to me. In the wake of COVID, those 3 years, for me, they were quite, maybe not as unpleasant. I do quite well when I'm alone. And I managed to somehow stay employed. My finances were good. I have a supporting family. And I got to just play games. So it wasn't that bad for me. For others, that was hell, right? Right. And it was a
Mm.
major turning point for them, um, mentally. And I was lucky to be in university during COVID, but for many, what you and I fail to consider is the amount of grade children, right? Where their
Mm.
home is hell, their parents are hell. Home is the last place they need to be. The
Yes.
only escape they have is their teachers, their friends, their colleagues, right? I mean, I don't know if people under the age of 18 have colleagues, but whatever. Grade school was their escape. For many people, that was their source of nutrition, even for meals. This might not be the case in the UK, but in America, uh, school lunches something you pay for, right? And so for many people, that became 2.5, 3 years of increased abuse, and the professional diagnosing of disorders in that regard makes a lot of sense for me. But yeah, it's very complicated because there's also TikTok influencers who are all of a sudden have all the acronyms.
Okay, let's put a thread in that for a second.
Yeah.
I just have to throw this out before I destroy TikTok influencers. um,
Oh, you
I,
should
re-
destroy them. Yeah.
I remember during COVID, here in the UK, there were posters and um, adverts about the rise of domestic abuse in the country
Yeah.
as a
That's real.
result
Yeah.
of COVID. And
The
as you
lockdowns.
said,
Yeah.
home was hell for many people,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
terrifying because it's like there's only so much you can do with situations like that. And we've seen time and time again, like failures to report, failures to
Yeah.
address
Yeah.
the issues, and so on. And it's fucking sucks. And as you said, it's a turn. Interesting to me because, like yourself, COVID was not really that bad for me. How it was like, I realized, if anything, the main thing I realized is, dude, I need to get out more. So I did.
Mhm.
And I've got like a healthy life now. But back then, I just didn't.
Yeah.
Play games, did streams, was pretty happy. The only thing that sucked was I was very far away from family and I couldn't see them, and that sucked. And there were moments
Yeah.
of loneliness, and there was a bit of fear actually. In the first kind of like 3 4 months, it was kind of scary. It's kind of surreal.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
everyone handled it differently. And the thing is, obviously, there was a lot of people that still had to just go to work, risk their life every
Yeah.
day, which people,
Uh,
you know, rather
Downplay,
patronizing,
but yeah.
rather patronizingly here in the UK, there was this whole thing of like, oh, support the key workers, da 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 da. It's a big propaganda thing, and like many of us absolutely believe in that. Like, yeah, man, NHS, people
Hmm.
risking their
Yeah.
lives, 100%. I was
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
charity work
Absolutely.
during COVID, and I was
Yeah.
risking my life as well, and it was scary, man. But you just do it, and it's funny how like as soon as things kind of ended or petered out, let's say, just the whole key worker thing was completely forgotten about. Very
Yeah.
famously here in the UK, there was a point where like it was discussed about doctors getting doctors and nurses, I think, getting like a increase in their wages or something like that, and like it was passed, they didn't get it, and I was like, wow, what a thank you, right?
Hmm.
Risking their lives
Yeah.
during that time, all this propaganda,
Hmm.
and then like suddenly it's like, yeah, we don't give a shit about you. Actually, we're just using you. I mean, that's the perception. I don't know. That's how it looked, but
Hmm.
then you look at like people, like I saw a lot of people that were going crazy because they just couldn't go out. They were like, "Oh, I miss clubbing. I
Hmm.
miss going
Yeah.
out." Like,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
I was like, "Have you never just had like a rainy day though? Like, you just stay at home and
Yeah.
just watch films and chill with family." And a lot
Yeah.
of people just
Yeah.
don't do that. I
Hmm.
don't know. I think that's like on some level is a little bit unhealthy.
Yeah. So there's different personalities, and for me, the wake
Sure.
up, go run, come home, eat, play games the rest of the day. That's a great life. But for some people, they just they need to see 20 people in their day, or their day was shit. And
Well,
yeah, so it's very strange. Yeah.
what I've learned in
Time.
life is everything is balance, right? The balance of all
Hmm.
things. So if I go out all the time, that's unhealthy. If I stay in all the time, that's unhealthy. So you find the intermediary point, what makes sense, right?
Yeah.
With people like that who are complaining, getting aggressive about it, frustrated, going crazy, I'm like, you need to learn how to enjoy your own company, to enjoy being alone or being at home. Like it's not as bad as you think it is. Like I get it, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong.
Mm.
It can be claustrophobic. You know, I
Yeah.
remember that the restrictions were very heavy at the time in the very beginning. And yeah, it was a little bit claustrophobic, but you know, we could still go out for a walk, get out and about.
Hmm.
Like it wasn't like we were locked down, like we can't move kind of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was frustrating. And I
Yeah.
see that and I
Yeah.
acknowledge
Absolutely.
that. But like I think like you said, it was a turning point. I think for many people, it might have been a wake up call as well.
Hmm.
You know, you gotta find a healthy balance. You know, um, when I find myself kind of veering too much in one direction, I pull it back. So, like for instance, I've been out a lot the last couple of days. Right now, tomorrow onwards, I'll be working. I won't be doing that. And yeah, it's just how it's worked out, but it's good. It's positive. You know, like today will be a home
Hmm.
day. I ain't going out. You know, I'll do this podcast, do my stream, go to bed. Good boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just you got to do that. You got to give the
Yeah.
healthy balance. You know, and I don't know.
Hmm.
Anyway, I'm gonna shut the fuck
I
up, and I want to actually
Yeah. Let's
ask
see what's
you.
on our what's on our agenda today.
Okay, I just want to talk about this. Oh, actually, I didn't shit on TikTok influencers. Oh, we'll come back to that.
Yeah. Sure.
What I want to say is just that
Hmm.
you are so easy to talk to,
Oh,
and
nice.
every now and again, I get a guest where like we click, and I'm like,
Yeah.
and I could talk to this person forever.
Yeah.
And but with you, it's dangerous because
Yeah. Yeah.
again,
We can
it's
we can go far.
right, and I'm still not asking my questions. I'm supposed to be
Yeah.
talking to you about philosophy, and we're sort of getting there a little bit, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I've not really got into it because it's just so easy talking to you, and I'm like, and my mindset
Yeah.
as a broadcaster is like, okay, don't interrupt a good train of thought, like go with it. You got like
That's a good point. Yeah.
do you know what I mean? If I don't,
Yeah.
people are going to be like, why didn't you ask him about that? Why didn't you go on that? And I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair. But yeah,
Yeah.
so it's dangerous talking to you, Jack.
Mhm.
All right, let's shit on TikTok influencers, then talk about philosophy. How's that sound?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Well,
All right.
I'll go first. I'll just take, I'll
A
just
massive
take 3 minutes
shit.
because yeah, I do like talking about philosophy and some of the points. So I'll be quick here. Maybe this is philosophy, but the I've just seen a huge rise in these, and everyone's seen it, and I find it the train of thought and our ability to stay on subject and our ability to sit down and take an hour to read a book is that is very rare now, and you can hardly find it. When you go out to eat, you'll see the couple sitting there. They're both glued to their phone, and I that has been pretty heartbreaking. But I have one key memory. Last year, I went to a Brahms. It's a well, cheap. I don't know if you guys have those. It's burgers and ice cream. And I went there, and it was very late at night. And the people that work at Brahms are usually lower class. They make very little money, and they don't have childcare. So what Brahms will do is you got a child, you can actually just sit your child in the restaurant for 8 hours. So I see this child, this must have been 5 or 6 years old, little boy. And he's, he's glued to this giant fucking screen. Who
Oh,
knows how long he's been there while his mom is working. And, but I start talking to him and, I'm just trying to, you try to be a good point of contact when you see people who are helplessly, I mean, this kid, however old he was, has no control over his life. But I ask him, finally, what do you want to be? And of course, when you get around the age of 15, 16, you got to begin to be realistic about what you want to be. But when you're a child, sure, yeah, just say you want to be an astronaut, say you want to be a pilot, say you want to do this or that. And the kid looks at me and this is just ingrained in me. Kid says, I want to be a YouTuber. And that just floored me because when I was that kid's age, I'm not old. I'm 25 years old, but when I was his age, I remember I wanted to be in the military but I wanted to do something amazing, right? I wanted to fly high, right? And looking at this kid, right, who's probably below the poverty line, whose mom is working at Brahms, the night shift, and he's stuck in Brahms for 8 hours with an iPad in front of him, watching these millionaire influencers make brain rot content, and that's what he wants to do. It just floored me. It just floored me, and the optics of that. I think having a bunch of kids at the age of 6, where that's their highest idea. Uh, I mean, again, I haven't spent too much time on it because I'm focused on other things, but as just one experience of many, that just rocketed me, and that's all I got to say about it. Is that I don't know why that memory sticks with me so persistently, but yeah, it kind of broke my heart a little bit in a way. But
I know what you mean. I I exclusively make long form content, right? But I've made short form content in the past. I've done all of that, wore the t-shirt, and I still do, but like I don't focus on it. I make it like, for instance, right now I have an album coming out, right? So every day I post like 4 or 5 second clips, whatever. I do that, But here's the thing: I don't spend a lot of time on it. I just put it out. It's done, whatever, right? Move on. But I spend the majority of my time creatively working on music, acting, preparing for a role, whatever, podcast, preparing, researching, putting together a show, researching the guests, structuring it, then the show itself, conversation, long form.
yeah,
I do it for me. I get a lot of things out of it. I see my audience returning for years in some cases. They're engaged in the way that I want them to be engaged. They're gaining some insight or a useful distraction or inspiration or happiness or whatever. But the point
yeah,
is, I've noticed, especially in more recent times, that I'm getting a lot more comments of Christian, you inspired me to do this. Christian, because of you, I got back into this. Hey, thank you for this. Da, 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 right? Lovely to hear. Really just makes it all the more worthwhile. Years ago, I was just doing this and I was like, fuck it, whatever happens, happens. Then I started receiving comments like that. Then I started receiving stuff like, hey, because of you, I'm still here. And I was like, holy shit. So then I realized the weight of responsibility that you have for your audience, whether you have 5 people watching or 5 million people watching, you have a weight of responsibility. Now, these short form content creators, TikTok influencers, YouTubers that are, millionaires at a young age and, as you say, make brain rot content, they clearly don't think about the impact of their content and what it's doing to their audience. They're thinking about how many clicks can I get? How much money can I make out
yeah,
of this? For instance, Mr.
hmm,
Beast has received a lot of criticism in the last year or two, and it's really just
yeah,
changed people's perception of him. And
yeah,
it's interesting because he was always getting criticized for the model he'd made. People, like Jacksepticeye famously said, "Oh, he's ruined YouTube. He's ruined it." Because
Hmm.
it used to be
Hmm.
about a guy, girl, whoever, whatever, takes a camera out, starts documenting their life, and now you've got an insight.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
now it's no longer I want to share life through my lens. It's how much money can I make from this? How can I
Yeah.
exploit my audience? Like it doesn't set a good example.
Hmm.
Like if you look at the kings of
Hmm.
YouTube, like a Logan Paul or something,
Hmm.
or a Mr.
Yeah.
Beast, it's
It's
like,
marketing now. Yeah.
well, yeah, but it's like people see. So, I mean, social media is a lie. So you don't see what a person's life is. You see what they want you to show you, right?
Sure.
And with these YouTubers, they're showing off, they're flexing. I always thought personally that that's a bit low. Like, hey, I'm going to show off all my shit. Like, I'm so rich,
Hmm.
I'm so
Yeah.
successful. I never got that. I look at that and think, what's cool about that?
Hmm.
Like, congratulations for being successful. That's cool. But I'm more inspired by like how you've grown as a person, how you've changed, what you've gained, because
Yeah,
your
but that's not
things.
interesting to 90% of the people on YouTube, right?
Yeah,
Right?
but
For them
it might
the
be,
Prada bag is
it might be
is
if
far
like
more
if
interesting.
50 of them started making meaningful content, maybe their audience might give a
Mm,
shit and be
mm.
inspired. But because they all
Yeah,
make
but I
brain rot
mean,
content, that's
yeah.
why people want that. Like
Yeah.
there's the old expression like, do you create the demand or is the demand created for you?
Hmm.
So people make the argument like, oh, well, these YouTubers made this content and people loved it and that's why they're successful. Or maybe they
Hmm.
just found what people were most, would get their attention quickest and they went with that. And then that's why they're successful. But
Hmm.
it has nothing to do with interest or anything like that. It's just about getting people's
To
attention.
me, the worst ramification is the attention spans. I
Sure.
think that is by far the most destructive, politically, socially, intellectually, and as an individual and as your contribution to society, that is the greatest harm because now, or I guess I should say, it used to be political documents would be read. Now they're summarized, and they're summarized by someone who probably didn't read it but got their information from it from another 7-second video. And the ability to actively parse out ideas is completely evaporated now. We have narratives, and there's nothing wrong with having a narrative, but something wrong with having a narrative that's not grounded in reality. And so, I mean, and again, we can move on after this, but it's just unfortunate that things get simplified as good guy, bad guy. Um, this is all corrupt, or this is all for money, or in the political or the social sphere. Really, the reality of a lot of these wars, or economic collapses, or elections, whatever it be, these should take hours to talk about and to become acquainted with, but that's no fun. That takes too long, and the narrative is much more simple, and it speaks more personally to me. I'm going to be writing an essay very soon for my Substack about the hobbification of politics. Right now, it's a hobby. Right, you can wake up, you can play your games, you can go on your workout, you can do your politics, and then you can stop doing your politics, and you can just go and continue doing whatever you're doing. It's a hobby now, and it's a hobby that you can just dabble in. You can just dabble, and the the impact that has on social conversations is painful. It's bad because the ability to lie has never been stronger, and the incentive to lie has never been stronger. And now I could be wrong. There could have been higher incentives to lie in the past, but now more than ever, it is so easy and so rewarded and so um, affirmed to lie quickly and to lie uneducatedly. And yeah, I think that's one of many effects that the quote unquote TikTok sphere has had on us.
I call it like I see it. The new generation
Yeah,
is lazy, rude, and
some of them. Yeah,
not most
yeah,
of them.
yeah,
I've had
yeah. Many of them.
people
Yeah,
I've had
for
people
sure.
that are supposed to be on this show and they can't give me a fucking I'll say this for anyone that's going to be on the show in the future, right? Don't waste my fucking time. If you don't want to be on the show, just say that. Don't read my messages and then just say nothing and avoid me in public and like look over my direction. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Hmm.
And that's people in like their early 20s, by the way,
Yeah.
right? And I'm noticing a trend. Like, I don't want to be like Grandpa Simpson and be like, oh, it's the old younger generation. But
Hmm.
you know what? You do start to notice patterns. Like yourself, I keep noticing patterns. I can't unsee it. Now, don't get me wrong, maturity is
Mhm.
not always age dependent, but I think you can start to draw generalizations and attach it to other things like, maybe they just don't have the same set of morals and values that we grew up with. Maybe their attention spans are not there because, yeah, they consume this brain rot content and all they care about is
Mhm.
acquisition of money and things and crap and just, do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, that shit's never interested me. Like, people ask me this question all the
Mhm.
time. Like, what do you care about? Like, do you want to be famous? Do you want loads of money? Like, I couldn't give two shits about that because I've not only does it not interest me, like, yeah, I want to be secure, sure, but I don't care about being rich and fame. I mean, like, fame used to be, it used to mean something. It used to be like, I'm talking hundreds of years ago, but like, oh, you invented this thing that has bettered humanity, or maybe
Mhm.
worsened humanity, but you became known for that and you were respected for that and you became
Mhm.
renowned. It was more renowned, rather than being
Mhm.
like this whole celebrity is a thing. It's
Yeah.
not about being respected anymore. I mean, you can make a case for musicians and artists and so on, but like in general, like that's why you've got
Yeah.
people, which I still can't get my head around this, but who are famous for being famous, because
Yeah.
that's a thing. Like
Yeah.
you can be a
Mhm.
professional celebrity, and I'm like, what the fuck does that
Yeah.
mean? But if you
Yeah.
say, what's your
Yeah.
profession? What do you do? What do you offer? Like,
Yeah.
what are you trying to achieve in life? They're like, oh no, ha, 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 I'm just being famous. I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And I look at the same with influencers, to be honest. I mean, look, that name is a buzzword. That word, sorry, is fucking annoying. It used to mean someone you follow who, yeah, influences you, hopefully in a positive way. Like, okay, you follow this bodybuilder or this fitness person, and they tell you, do you know what? I've been using this and it's really good. Give it a try. And you like this person, you respect what they do, and you give it a try and you try out that product. And so this is obviously where sponsorships and deals came from because people were like, oh, wow, well, they've got like 100K and those people seem to do what this person says. Let's float some money their way and, get them to sponsor this product. Now, that in of
Yeah.
itself is fine and to this day is still fine. However, you said it's very easy to lie in society right now. There's a lack of
Mhm. Yeah.
integrity.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would I would agree with that. I think especially when it comes to influencers, that's the case. They'll promote anything and do anything so long as it makes money. Now, you are a professional influencer. So you have to consider the
I'm
fact
not.
that no, just people,
Oh. Oh. Okay.
you're influencing people all the time.
Yeah.
I'll take it one further. You're influencing children, young people.
Yeah.
I have people
Oh.
that follow me
Mhm.
that I know for a fact are young minors, etc. Right? I try my very
Yeah.
best to keep
Yeah.
things above board. I don't
Yeah.
hide. I'll still drop the f bomb and stuff, but like
Mhm.
I try to keep things. I try to set a good example. I guess. I
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
siblings that are younger. I feel I have a sense of responsibility. I'm older now. I'm not a kid anymore. I try to
Mhm.
be sensible. I try to set a good example. And I think that a lot of influencers don't give a shit about that. They just care about the money
Mhm.
and they don't care about the impact they're having on an audience. And I think that is
Yeah.
devastating.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, no, it's we'll it's too early to tell, but we'll see the effects studied academically and professionally in a couple years' time, and we'll be able to truly measure the collateral
sure.
damage that has happened from this. Yeah.
I think we can already see it in society though. Like you mentioned that kid,
Yeah,
like it
yeah, but
used
we'll
to
be able
be,
to, yeah, yeah,
well, it's like,
but
okay,
we'll see
why,
the go on.
why did that kid want to be a YouTuber?
I couldn't tell you, but
No,
I
but
mean, I
like
mean,
we can theorize.
certain,
It's
certain,
because
certain, yes, 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 certain. He saw flashy things. He sees the numbers, and
he wants
maybe,
the life.
maybe he was able to. Well, it's quite hollow, but it might be different for some of them. But really, it's. I mean, I doubt the kid was thinking of sex, but as much as I hate the narratives and as much as I hate the slogans, but sex, money, power really.
Yep.
That's one of those few narratives that has really managed to continuously echo throughout abuses of of power. So maybe maybe not the sex part, but the money and the
No,
power
it's still there. It's still there. If anything,
certainly speaks. Yeah,
it's so much more
yeah,
prevalent now than it's ever been. I mean,
yeah.
just look at
I'm speaking of this 7 year old, but yeah, yeah, for the most part, yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah,
no. Okay,
absolutely. It
okay,
was,
okay. Well, let's examine that for a second.
mhm.
Yeah, of course there aren't people market. I mean, there's some fucked up people that try to do that, but in
Yeah,
general, that's not being marketed to children. However, platforms' entry points are not strict. There are literal children on TikTok, actual children. There's
yeah,
no
yeah.
like
It's
they can
yeah,
just easily get
it's
on
terrible.
and they're exposed to like content that they should not be, which is going to be traumatizing.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
your brain
I guess
doesn't can't tell the difference between something it's seeing on the phone versus something it's seeing in real life. Like you're just going to
yeah,
have seen something
yeah.
traumatizing and it's going to affect your brain.
I think a better answer I could give is and this kind of helps us bridge into a little bit of philosophy is the lack of ethos and the lack of standards and what it means to
Yes.
have a successful and a profitable, and I'm not speaking monetarily profitable, I'm speaking a intellectually profitable life. I believe it was John Stuart Mill. He said it's better to be miserable and be Socrates than be um, joyful and be a pig in the mud. Right, right. You could have the brain of a pig and be having the time of your life. That would actually be worse than being miserable, but being a person in tune with themselves. And
Whoa, hold
the
up,
height
hold
of
up.
life is no longer yeah yeah
I mean, that's the argument of ignorance is bliss, though, isn't it?
yeah yeah
To some
for the most
extent.
part, yeah, that's yeah yeah. But we've lost sight, and I don't want to, I'm 25, so I can only speak to my current time. I'm not going to say this is new. Maybe it's new in a different texture thanks to the strength of social media, but I don't know how true this has always been. But the barriers, or I guess the examples of what it is to live an amazing life, and what an amazing life constitutes, has been, it's evaporated, right? And so now being smart is optional, right? That used to be a mandate for everyone in
Oh,
society.
wow. What a
Now
statement.
now it's optional, right? No, it's optional now. You don't need to do it. Being educated, maybe not formally, but even somewhat through an apprenticeship or through literature that used to be required. Now it's optional. Um, and the idea of what it is to treat your spouse or your partner, um, there used to be pretty high standards for that. Now it's, even if you want a spouse, right? Maybe you don't want one, or maybe you want multiple, right? And
Cheating is
these
encouraged. I've seen that,
stand
like on social
cheating is
media.
encouraged. Yeah, yeah.
It
The red
is,
pill
or
society is very quick to tell you that the biology of the human male should be to have multiple women. Yeah, that's a common one now. And so the standards, or the lodestar of what a good life is, yeah, it's completely gone. And there's no um, there's no good example out there, right? Or there's rather, I'll take an approach similar to Charles Taylor, a philosopher. It, it used to be that intellectualism, or sort of a strong ethos was the only option on the menu. you had to move towards this. There were no other options, or you wouldn't make it. Society would ridicule you. You know, you'd be ostracized, you'd be exiled socially. But now there's a buffet, right? There's a buffet. There's many options of what you want to be like, who you want to be like, and there's a plethora of communities that will accept you for quote who you are. And we always say, be true to who you are. You know, be true to who you are. Do what you want. Be who you want. And we'll always love you and accept you. I think that's poisonous. And I think we need to be careful about that because what people fail to consider is, well, what if who you are is subpar? Right? What if who you are is bad or harmful? Right? We got to accept you for who you are. What if you're a bad person? Right? Why should I accept you if you're a bad person? Of course, no one actually believes this. They're very quick to reject people they think are harmful. But yeah, I'm ready to move on when you are. But that's it's unfortunate. It's there's a plethora of personalities you can be. Many of them undesirable, but now we've popularized or allowed communities of undesirable personalities to exist and proliferate, and they're standing open arms to accept anyone new they want, right?
Mm. There's a few directions I can take this in. I mean, question number
Yeah.
one, do you think we're complicit in that? Question number two, the bigger question is, what can we really do to change that in
Well, it's
society
the
right
same
now?
answer for both of those questions. Same answer to both of those questions. We're complicit as long as we're not saying something, right? What can you do to change it is say something, right? Um, and this often turns into very uncomfortable. And I guess I should give concrete examples instead of speaking abstractly, so I can give something of substance here. It, it's hard to say something because there's so much underlying ideology that comes when you say something, right? So let's say we meet someone, they're big fans of Andrew Tate. They say we should have multiple girlfriends, right? Well, the current trope in society is, well, accept those people for who they are. You know, live their life. They want to be polygamous. Let them be polygamous. Who cares about the downstream effects that has on society? Let them objectify their women. Who am I to say something? Let's just make sure that they have their space in society. If you want to say something, if you want to say, hey, polygamy is actually probably net harm to society, right? What it does to the individual women who inevitably get caught in a competition competing for one man, and what that does to their self-image, what that does to the man as he refuses to practice commitment, when he refuses sacrifice aspects of himself for one individual woman. We're gonna if you want to come and say that that's harmful, both on the individual level, caring about the women, caring about the guy himself, even though he might be um, um, not so kind, caring about them as individuals, and also what that does to society, in the long run, what that does if you want to speak out against that. Well, you're then laying your ethics on other people and telling them to obey your ethics. And we are too cowardly to do that. That is something we need to get over. We need to understand, and I mentioned this last episode, is we need to be ready to subscribe to normative ethics, to ethics that exist whether or not we agree with them. We need to be ready to do that. And
Whoa, back up.
the backlash,
What do you mean? Whether or not we agree with them? Why would you support something you don't agree with?
well,
Like, why would you run with it?
because it exists outside of you, right? So, Christian, whether you think 2 + 2 is 4 or not is not up to you. Right?
Huh.
You can come in and say, I don't like 2 + 2 is 4. That doesn't really sit well with me. I was raised differently in the culture that raised me in this third world country. We think differently. We say 2 + 2 is 5. And I need you to give me space in society and leave space on your popular
This is,
television channels to
but
allow
this
me to
is,
air that side of me because that's what's true to me.
but it's okay. That's a bad
Yeah.
example because you're talking about fact. 2 + 2 is
Mhm. Well, let me ask you:
undisputably four.
is more? Yeah, yeah. Well, I would agree with you. Do you think morality is based on facts, or do you think it's based on your
No,
opinion?
100% your opinion. because everyone's
So
idea
what?
of
So
what is right and
mhm,
wrong is different,
yeah, yeah.
and
So
like
who are you
it's
to tell
not
me that your so who are you to tell me your opinion is more valuable than mine? Why should we
exactly
listen to your ethics? Well,
exactly yes.
this is I don't think you actually believe this, because then we get into the very the we look at social applications of this idea of subjective ethics. What you're proposing here is called subjective ethics, right? And
Yeah.
or cultural relativism. And now we get to the difficult part of saying there are countries and cultures out there where women from a young age are barred from school
Mm,
because they shouldn't go to school.
hmm.
They live their lives in niqabs and burqas,
Hmm.
and if they speak out in public, we're going to throw battery acid in their face. If they take off their veil, we're going to throw battery acid in their face.
Mm.
If they learn how to read past a fourth grade level, right, well, then we need to punish them, and we need to punish their family. Now, these are cultural ethics
Hmm.
that are not rejected by the society at large. If you go into some of these societies, they are, even the women who are getting the battery acid thrown in their face are are supporting this. Right now, who are you, Christian, and who am I to say there's anything wrong with that? That's their opinion, right? And culturally, they say that's a good thing, and they want to maintain that. Now, who are you to put your opinion, your subjective ethics on them? Why should they listen to you? Right? They all agree that this is good. And who are you to get in their way, Christian? Right? Why are we listening to your ethics and saying that that's bad? That's just your thought.
Do you remember last show when I said that there's a lot of things that I can't take a stance on because I'm genuinely perplexed and don't know? This is one of
Yeah.
them. And I have spent
Mm-hmm.
a lot of time thinking about this. Like, for example, I was watching there's this wrestling documentary series called Dark Side of the Ring. Fascinating. I implore everyone to go check it out. If you're not a fan of wrestling, it's still excellent. Many series, behind the scenes, fascinating. Anyway, there was an episode where they covered the world's biggest wrestling show of all time, which was held in North Korea in the mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
It was designed as part of like a international peace festival situation between Japan, representatives from Japan and the Japanese company they had there called New Japan Pro Wrestling, and WCW, World Championship Wrestling from America, and then of course North Korea. Now, Antonio Inoki, who orchestrated all of this, his father, I believe, was North Korean and was famously killed by Japanese yakuza, something like that. And if you look at history, North Korea used to be occupied by Japan, and so there's this deep resentment of Japanese people and culture that still is prevalent to this day and was at the time in the 90s. Now, for those who don't know, North Korea is essentially like I guess you could say like a communist
It's a prison
dictatorship.
state. It's a
I
prison
mean,
state.
that's you could say that, yeah. It's a communist dictatorship, and it's existed since the Korean War, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there was a 50s, I think, between South Korea and North Korea. And as you said, it's a prison state. It's closed off from the rest of society. Fascinatingly so, though, there is influence with the West. There are dealings with China and Japan, etc. It's fascinating because it's like on one hand they have this dictatorship and it's very controlled and they have mass poverty there and everything, and then on the other side of it, they also have business and produce and trade with other countries, but on a very restricted level. And there's a fascinating YouTube video online that really, I can't remember who it's by, but it basically talks about how North Korea works, like how it functions. And to give like a quick synopsis, the way it works is that, like every 5 years or so, they threaten to like bomb somewhere, or
Yeah.
that's basically them saying, okay, we're beginning to run out of money now, so we have to like get your attention, and we're not enough making enough money through how we survive elsewhere. So can you give us more money? And then EU, UN, whatever, reluctantly accepts. They give them money, and then you don't hear from them for another 5 years. And in between that time, they're essentially rationing that money, trying to figure stuff out. They're also operating essentially illegal trade. So in Pyongyang, you have
Yeah.
illegal trade occurring there under the guise of the
Hmm.
government. The government is fully aware that it happens, and it allows it to happen
Yeah.
because they are aware that without that trade, they'd be screwed. But they also are this dictatorship, and they have to like adhere to this style and culture, etc. Right? So it's a weird kind of like juxtaposition situation where like it doesn't really make sense, but they somehow make it work. Anyway, I'm sat watching this documentary. I've seen it before. I'm massively fascinated with North Korea because it blows my mind that this exists in this day and age. But then again, to your point, there's so many cultures in the world that directly clash with or disagree with like Western ideologies and stuff.
Hmm.
Like every country is completely
And what's
different.
wrong? What's wrong with that, though? What's wrong with that?
On face value, nothing. But then, as you
Really?
said earlier, right, the ethics issue is tricky because it's like your ethics versus my ethics. So the
Hmm.
example you gave there of like certain countries where women like second citizens and have lesser rights, right? In their
Yeah.
culture,
Yeah.
that's normative. It's considered normal.
It's not
But
just
by
considered normal; it's considered good. It's
right, but
considered
by
good.
by our standards and our ethics, it's considered
Hmm.
immoral and wrong, right? But
Yeah.
then this is the thing, isn't it? Like we live on this planet with all these different societies and ideologies and stuff, and we somewhat coexist, and we have done for a while. But like we're not at peace. We're not a peaceful
No.
race. We are
Hmm.
a race constantly battling each other, not understanding each other, clashing. We're seeing it, the height of it, really, I feel right now, with the advent of the internet and its reach and everything, heightened war
Hmm.
tensions across the world, political and economical instability. You're really feeling the pressure now. And
Hmm.
I know that with your point, it's not just about in general, you're also kind of hinting at the fact that like we're coming to a precipice essentially. We're coming to a point now where we're moving in a direction where something major has to change, or otherwise
Hmm.
it's probably going to be inward implosion kind of thing. Like you either destroy
Hmm.
yourselves completely or you work towards some degree of a peaceful resolution, right? um I will just say I'm theorizing here. I'm a dreamer. I love philosophy. I love ethics. I love these conversations. I never have the answers, but I love to explore them and just because like the question of like what
Hmm.
makes a perfect society is almost like an impossible conversation. And I think like every single bit of
I
media
don't
that
think so.
okay, cool. What I would say on that is that like any piece of media that I've consumed, be it like a film or a TV show or something like that, where the storyline runs along the side of like okay ideal society or new society or like the like I love like post apocalyptic content. I find it fascinating
Hmm.
because you've destroyed society as we know it and you're trying to rebuild. So what does that society look like? How do you choose to govern it? And I think there's really really good
Hmm.
examples in say like the Fallout series. The Walking Dead especially is very interesting. I feel like The Walking Dead is closer to what it would actually look like if there was like zombies. Because why? Because so not many people know this, but The Walking Dead actually refers to it's kind of like an entendre. It's like a play on words, but The Walking Dead is the humans. It's not the zombies.
Hmm.
There's the famous line in one of the latter seasons where Rick refers like to excuse me the humans as being like we are the Walking Dead, like we are you know the reason for that, okay, this is nerdy, but basically they're actually dead. They're all gonna die and become zombies. That's like part of the virus thing. So that they're essentially like ticking time bombs, essentially. But the reason I bring this
Mm,
up, what the interesting point I find is how humans react to it and what kind of societies they build and create. So in The Walking Dead, you've got a group of people who go around destroying and taking everything. What do they call it? The one by Negan. I can't remember what they called them, but I think it was like the Saints or something like ridiculous because they're like awful, awful people. But essentially, what they are is scavengers. But they rob people. They're raiders. They're raiders. In the Fallout universe, they'd be raiders. They rob people. They're like highwaymen, if you like. So you've got them. You've got humans that kill other humans to take what they have, and their ideology is, well, it's nature, it's you versus me. I'll take what I can get. Don't care, right? Then you've got people who try to like rebuild society as it used to look. They try to cling on to the old ways and rebuild it, and maybe shift, adapt it, change it in a way that's maybe better, improved. Then you've got people who try to create something closer to like a communist society. And what I mean by is like, we all share things equally. We try to make it work,
mhm,
etc. Right? Like farming and sharing of resources. Then you've got like standard like capitalism style where there's trading and stuff like that. You see that in the Fallout series as well. I've always found it fascinating when people say like, "Oh, if money disappeared, it'd be the end of the world." It's like, no, like we would just trade. Like we traded before,
mhm.
we'll trade again. People always think it's funny in the Fallout series that the unit of money, if
Bottle
you like,
caps.
is it's bottle caps. And it's like, why is it bottle caps? I think it's explained somewhere, but really, it doesn't matter. Like it's just a symbol. It's just a thing. Money is a symbol.
Hmm.
If you think about it, like the actual what like notes it's nothing, it's a piece of paper, it doesn't
Hmm.
matter.
Or they're worthless. Yeah.
Yeah, it's worthless, but we give it value. We
Hmm.
say we agree, we're like, okay, this is £5 or $5, this represents
Hmm.
value, and so if I give you this, you're going to give me something back. But we as a society could reject that tomorrow and be like, actually, money don't mean nothing. We reject money.
Yeah.
Now it's just only based on equal value. So I trade a
Um,
part of a car for your food scraps. You
yeah.
know,
I'm still curious on what you think about normative ethics
I
and
don't
who we
know.
are to.
You do this to
Well, we
me. I don't know.
well we went down this. I'm curious
Well,
what the
because look, when
implication
when
is.
it was the politics conversation, it was easier because like, while
Hmm.
I am centrist, I've got like views on some things, views on other things, but I
Yeah.
know what I'm passionate about, and I say it. But
Well, we
when it
got
comes to
here. We
ethics, I don't know, brother.
Yeah.
You're pushing me
Well, we
to,
got well, we got well, we got here because we were talking about philosophy,
yeah.
and I said ethics is matter of fact. You said no, it's a matter of opinion. And I
You
have a
led
friend. This
you
is a friendly
led me
conversation.
there. Like that's
Yeah,
come on.
yeah,
I know
yeah,
I'm very aware what's going on. What you've done,
yeah.
much like how
But
sometimes
my
I ask leading questions, I've not
uh,
said one way or another like this is my definitive opinion. You
hmm
said
but I would
this and I offered a different opinion and you were, oh, so that's your
mhm,
stance. And I'm like, I don't have a stance. As I've said before, I'm
mm,
not 100% on any of this.
yeah. But my belief is that no one is actually no one actually thinks ethics is a matter of opinion. I don't think anyone actually believes that. Because you would say, and this is not a controversial statement, you would say killing innocent people is wrong.
Yes.
And you would say that, and I would say that, and you would also look poorly on people that disagree with you. You would look poorly on them, as you should. And the whole point I'm getting at here is you do believe ethics is a matter of fact. You do believe it because if you didn't, if you really believed ethics is a matter of opinion, you wouldn't look down on people who have
Hold up a second.
different sets of ethics than you. Sure.
What was the statement you said before? Word for word.
I said many.
About killing.
One of them was
About killing.
killing innocent people is wrong.
Right. So, to be clear, killing innocent people is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
This is a
Mm-hmm.
statement we both agree on.
Mm-hmm.
And as you say, if someone would disagree with that, we would both be like, you are wrong for thinking this. How could you kill an
Yeah.
innocent person? Right. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, where the opinion thing comes into play would be when the wording changes. Now, if your statement was killing people is wrong
Mm-hmm.
and you didn't add the innocent word,
Yeah.
that's now a
So
different
I
state.
think,
It's a different statement.
yeah,
People assume
yeah.
you mean just in general, but wording.
No, I
The
intentionally put innocent in there
Yeah,
because
I know,
there's
I know, I know, I know.
times where you should kill people.
Yeah, right. So this is where it's opinion based, right? Because I could turn around and be like, all killing is wrong, like of any
Yeah.
kind, all killing is wrong,
But
and you could be
you don't
like,
believe that though.
well, it doesn't matter what I believe.
Yes, it does.
What matters is the wording, because this is why people clash. Because one person would be like, well, we need to kill these people to ensure our safety, and I'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
all killing is wrong. And they're like, well,
Mm-hmm.
then they might say something like, well, do you want these people to kill your family? And you'd be like, well, of course not. And they'd be like, well, there you go then. And you'd be like, well, yeah, but why do we have to kill these people to achieve that goal? And then this is, do
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? And then the argument goes and it goes and it goes. And this is what I see about
Um,
ethics in general. Is it's like sometimes it's like, oh, you're right, I'm wrong. You know, you don't have morals, right? Sometimes it's that. But I feel like a lot of the time it's more circumstantial. It's more like based on these kind of arguments. Like, okay, well, I have this opinion because of these experiences and this knowledge. And you have this opinion because of this knowledge and these experiences,
mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
it shifts and it changes. Like the best example I think I could give is capital punishment, the big one, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Should you kill another human being if they've taken a life or done something that we as a society agree is heinous and wrong? Um, my personal opinion. Damn, I'm gonna get this is a heavy one.
Well, I mean, if anyone's familiar with my show, I had the director of the Death Penalty Institute or the
Mad.
Death Penalty Information Center on my podcast. And then I also had Anthony Graves on my podcast. He was on death row for 18 years and then was found innocent and was
Damn.
let off. I also lectured at the Dallas Philosophers Forum about capital punishment, and I've written quite extensively on it. So tread lightly.
What do you think?
It's I would two answers. One is it doesn't matter what I think. There is an objective answer to this, but two, I think here I go. I think
Mm.
it's clearly wrong. It's clearly wrong because and you can come to this conclusion by asking a couple questions. One is what does society gain out of executing its prisoners? Right? What do we gain? Are the streets safer? Um, Maybe, but could they be safer, easier by just locking the individual up? Absolutely. Is it cheaper than housing them? No, it's a lot more expensive. The legal fees one has to go through, the cost of the serum we use to inject them is costly. And yeah, like I mentioned, the legal paperwork ends up costing more than it does to keep them in prison for 40 more years of their life. Um, what example are we setting with retributive justice? Retributive justice is archaic, it's barbaric, and revenge killing serves absolutely no purpose. It's purely emotive, not emotive. It's emotive. It's all out of emotion. It's completely. There's no benefit to society, and all the whack job arguments of well, it deters crime. Statistically, at least here in America, the states that practice capital punishment per capita have more crime. So, regardless of how that crime arises is irrelevant. All we need to know is it's clearly not deterring them. No one's Before someone goes on a murder spree, they're not worried about the punishment. Um, It's never something they factor in. My point is it's depending on how you gauge it. Morally, I think it's easy to argue against it, but even economically, fiscally, financially, it doesn't do anything. And then sociologically, as a deterrence, it clearly doesn't do anything. But when I meet people who think differently, when I meet people who say, "Well, in my opinion," because my morals are subjective, they're my opinion. When I meet people who say, "Well, my opinion is we should keep it around," say, "Cool, I don't who your opinion is actually incorrect. You can think that all you want. You can actually be mistaken about it. But when it comes down to your argument, there's no argument that stands the objective evidence. Your deterrence argument is going to fall short. Your financial argument is going to fall short. And when I make you use at least two brain cells to run through the moral, ethical justifications of it, of revenge, the ethical justifications of revenge, you're going to fall short to anyone with sensibility, which is, caters to my point of like, who cares what people think? We can prove them wrong.
Okay.
Just like we can prove them wrong with every backward society.
This is really important because you've said something there that I actually disagree with, but only because of how can I word this? Like how information and statements are processed. So we'll get back to the death penalty for a second.
Sure.
I will just say I agree with Jack's points about the death penalty, and I will explore that a little bit in a second. So that's not the part that I disagree with. Thing I disagree with is you said, "Oh, it's your opinion, therefore it's wrong." I disagree with this statement because an opinion is not like is not fact. It's not. It can have facts in it, but an opinion is exactly that. It's an opinion. It doesn't hold any weight. You can give an opinion weight by basing it in fact and reasoning, and like what you've done. You've made a reasoned argument, right? So if we were in front of Congress, for argument's sake, and we went up there and we made statements for and against, the absolution of capital punishment, right? That would be drastically different to me and you sitting here giving opinions on what we think, right?
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can I just
Sure.
we can actually just make this way simpler. We can make this much easier. You and I are walking together and we come across a family of four. They're middle class, they're fine people, they're not doing anything wrong. And I say, they're consuming too much of our resources. We're gonna kill them right now. This family of four, two kids and two parents, and we're gonna kill them. And you say we shouldn't, and I say, just make this argument to me. Why should we? I say it's good we do it. You say it's not. Why is your idea that we should keep them safe, preserve them? What makes you any more right than me? Right? Is right even the word we can use? Can we even use right can we use right and wrong with matters of opinion? This is my overall point here is subjectivists in the moral realm are not intellectually, epistemologically, you're not even able to make statements of right and wrong when it's a matter of opinion. If ethics is a matter of opinion, you can make statements of right and wrong. You're just not being consistent with your worldview. The worldview you have does not allow you to make statements of right or wrong unless you always caveat it with, in my opinion, which, as you just mentioned, it's a matter of fact, and we have no business listening to you. Right. And so you just need to make your point. All you need to do is show why some opinions should be valued over others, but then you need to,
Right.
The substance that's going to surround that opinion better be made out of facts. Right.
And this goes back to what I was saying before about like if you back up your opinion with fact and reasoning and stuff like that, then it, as you say, it holds value. Whereas if it's just like I just think this because of XYZ, or because I heard someone
But
say it or
even
whatever.
in moral conundrums, the facts that surround it have to be objectively morally valued or not, right? So when I can surround it by, factually, I'm right. These people consume too much. This family of four consumes too much. They're overspending. They haven't committed a crime, but I can raise the net good by doing this. That might be factually right, but it still comes down to a matter of, is it good or is it bad to kill them? And what do those words mean? And if it's an opinion, it's there, as you mentioned, it's valueless. It's not, it doesn't have anything of substance there. Um, it's a matter of preference. And if you want to, just like I know you do, and just like I want to, if we want to look at societies that, subject their women to secondhand um, um, citizenry, or if we want to look at North Korea and say, that's not good. We disapprove, and you should change. If we want to be able to say you should change, all Kim Jong Un has to say is, "Well, that's just your opinion. I think differently. Thank you. Bye. I'm going to go back to starving 80% of my population and spending 95% of my budget on military spending. Thanks for your opinion, but I politely reject your opinion. You like chocolate. I like vanilla. They're equal ideas. I have no reason to listen to you, Christian. Thank you." And that's what Kim Jong Un would say to you. Right? We have to accept that we, even if people say morals and ethics are a matter of opinion, I never believe it, because those people will all still say moral statements as if they're facts. Right? The reason you think I shouldn't kill that family of four is because you know that, even, despite your opinion, it's objectively wrong. And you would even agree that if you were born differently, if you were born with a cyst or a tumor on your amygdala, the place of the brain that's responsible for moral reasoning, if you were born there with a tumor and you did want to kill those people, you would still say it's wrong, right? Even if you thought differently. The thought experiment is, if Hitler won World War II, right? Man in the High Castle and Wolfenstein are all true. America is owned by the Nazis. We're all Nazis. You, Christian, and me, Jack, we were raised to hate Jews. We hate Jews. It's normal in society to hate Jews. When you see a Jew, you get paid for killing them. The question is, in that society, is it still wrong to hate Jews? Now, you think it's not wrong to hate them. I don't think it's wrong to hate Jews. But in that society, would it still, if an alien came to our Earth, if that alien came and said, "That's wrong, they're treating these Jews wrong. This is wrong," would he be right? Would he? Of course he would be right. Right? Despite what humans think, it would still be wrong to kill Jews. Right? Who cares what anyone thinks? Right?
I guess this
Even
brings
if
about
all of society said,
the greater question though, like who decides absolutely what the standards for moral
yeah,
and ethics
yeah,
are? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
because
That's the
there's no,
that's the
there's
extremely
the
tough
thing,
part.
there's no God, there's no high, there's no physical God
Wow,
in
what a
front of
statement.
us. Hold on, there's no
Mm-hmm,
physical God in front of us right now going, this is what you need to be doing, right? Now we
mm-hmm,
have religion, and from religion comes often moral and ethics. So, for example, like our laws
mm-hmm.
are based on, like
Yeah.
things like the Ten Commandments and stuff like that. Like, thou shalt not steal. Stealing is illegal. It's a felony. It's against the law. So you see morals and ethics in law, in society, in arguments about, like what's right and what's wrong socially, culturally, etc. Right? Like we are obviously deeply concerned about these things in society. However, we've not come to like a universal agreement on these things. You mentioned aliens. Like if an alien came tomorrow to see Earth, it would see catastrophe, chaos.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
chaos. We are in chaos. We might not realize it, or we not be might not be as fully accepting of that fact, but we are. I
Yeah.
mean, look, I think capital punishment is wrong. I don't, and here's why. Excuse me. I agree with all your points. I think you can break it down with logic and reasoning and stuff like that. But I go back to a statement I heard years and years and years and years ago. Ricky Gervais used to do the Ricky Gervais podcast. That's why I got into podcasting. He did a series afterwards, very short lived, and the whole point was it was supposed to kind of take the piss out of Carl and be a sort of let's get his thoughts and opinions on the tough subjects, like law and order and moral,
Hmm.
religion and so on and so forth, right? But
Yeah.
they were doing the introduction to Law and Order, I think, and Ricky was going through various statements, and he spoke on capital punishment, and he said, and I agree with this statement, I don't think that society that demonstrates that level of violence should be like taken seriously. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
if you like capital punishment is the like the highest level of punishment, right? And
Hmm.
typically it's given for like for killing or for like horrible other acts. What he was trying to say there was that society giving this kind of high level of punishment and then expecting its citizens to follow in due course is like objectively just ridiculous. And you laid it out there. Like
Hmm.
I knew it was coming with the statistics and everything. I'd heard the same thing, read the same thing that, rather bizarrely, states that in the United States that have the death penalty, the violent crime is actually at a higher level. And you could
Higher. Yeah.
you could
Hmm.
argue it's oh well it's the state itself, it's other
Yeah.
issues, but I mean statistics are there for a reason. They're numbers. They
Yeah.
are
Yeah. Point is,
factual.
it doesn't deter. That's the point. Yeah.
Right. That's what you can sort
Yeah.
of glean from that. You can say, yeah, it's not a deterrent. And punishment, if nothing else, is supposed to be a deterrent. The whole point is it's by saying we will kill you if you kill other people or something to that effect. Like they don't spell it out in that
Hmm.
way, but that's essentially what it's saying. If it doesn't deter people, then what's the point? You know, with rehabilitate, you could make the argument, well, you're keeping the streets safer. These people aren't on the streets. That's an argument. But if it's not actively
Hmm.
preventing violent crime, then it's not achieving that goal, then, is it?
Yeah.
There's other issues in society, obviously. Like we have the same issue as America when it comes to like overcrowding in prisons, having to release people early because of said fact, the strain it puts on society. We believe in a rehabilitation process here in the UK, and in some instances it's successful, in others drastically not. It's often you do get a lot of repeat offenders, especially for violent crime. But
Hmm.
again, if we suddenly brought in the death penalty tomorrow, I'm pretty willing to bet that like a lot of because
Nothing would change.
you got to think as well, like people that are at that level where they because there's different types of killing, isn't there? Like, I know killing is not the only reason that death penalties are brought in, but typically speaking, you could probably argue that 80% of the cases it's probably because of like
Well,
they're a
well,
serial
it
killer or they
depends. It depends on your country. In America, you can't get the death penalty unless you've murdered someone.
okay, right. So we'll go
But
with that reasoning, right? That it's mostly
yeah,
used in the instances where someone has taken another life,
but
right?
it depends on your country. Yeah.
Right. But then here's the other side of that, which is there's killing for different reasons. So we
Hmm.
mentioned before, like, is killing in some instances right or wrong? If your partner attacks you with a machete and you're trying to defend yourself and you kill them in the course of that, you are defending yourself. Now, in the States, they call it self defense, and in many cases, people don't even serve time for that because it's proven, well, they're just defending themselves.
Yeah.
It is what it
Yeah.
is. In the UK, we have a thing called manslaughter. Typically, you'll
Hmm.
still serve time, but you'll serve like a few years. You'll get out early. Versus, obviously, if you murder
Hmm.
someone, that's very different. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one.
Hmm.
I think there are some instances
Yeah.
where people do get out, but typically they might serve a few
You
years
shouldn't
still.
serve. Yeah. Yeah.
I would agree, but again,
That's objectively wrong. That people
it
should serve time.
depends. It really depends because every single
Yeah.
situation is a bit different. Do you know what I mean? And
Sure.
this is why it's not a black and white issue. when it comes to these things because it's like if I'm a serial killer and I go out and kill a bunch of people, then something like the death penalty might seem like the only solution, right? But the solution is to take me away from society and prevent me from doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
obviously, killing
I
is in a
can
way
I can do that without killing you. Yeah.
right, exactly. Because if you
Yeah.
put me in a
Yeah.
room and you prevent me from being able to kill people, then I can't do it anymore, right?
Streets are safer. Yeah.
Right. So the point that you made about like it doesn't add anything to society by doing that, it doesn't contribute something positive. Like that's the one argument to that I find like most compelling above all else. It
Mm-hmm.
almost feels pointless. It's like
Mm-hmm.
yes, this person did something wrong. Yes, it's evil.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we don't condone that. But does taking their life in any way better your life, other people's lives? You can make an argument. Maybe it brings relief to the victim's family. There's been a lot of instances where that's not the case, though.
More
Famously,
than
well,
not, they it does because it doesn't bring back their loved one.
right,
They're
but more than
very
that,
unsatisfying.
it's like you often hear in the States people talk about justice. People are very passionate about justice, and when it comes to
Yeah.
like getting
Mm-hmm.
their kid, the if it's a parents against the murderer and they got the murderer incarcerated and they're going to prison, they're going to serve time. You always hear that. They always say, well, of course, it will never bring back my child, but at least some justice was served today. At least the system in some cases
Mm-hmm.
works and this person serves time and, they won't do it to other people. They will, because that's the thing as well, like that. And this is, I think, a thing that people don't often think about, and maybe they should. If you're in prison for the rest of your life, you live a very different life. You will forever have that
Mm-hmm.
on your mind. Like a good example is Charles Manson. Charles Manson died in prison. He was incarcerated in the 60s, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
late 60s, and he spent the rest of his years in prison. And he went through various different stages throughout that time. It was always kind of argued that he was just completely crazy and lost it, and you can see that in the videos throughout the years. Um, Did he was he remorseful for his crimes? Probably not. We may never know. You want that. You want people to be remorseful. But if we'd have let him out in society, would he have done something like that again? Maybe, maybe not. Um, it's as they say, a moral quandary on so many levels. Like what's best for society, what's right for society. How do we best protect people? How do we
Mm-hmm.
best set an example? I mean, I think the biggest issue with capital punishment above all else is that, and if you look at it, just forget about individual society for a second, just look at it as like human beings. Like you said before earlier in the conversation about aliens. If aliens came to our planet and they saw, oh, there's certain places in the world where their ultimate punishment is death because this person has killed other people or done these heinous
Mm-hmm.
crimes. I think it might, on some level, make us still look barbaric, even though we're trying to explore,
Yeah.
morality and
Let me.
ethics and issues like that. It's still on some level, and this goes back to the Ricky Gervais quote that I said, like a
Mm-hmm.
society that dishes out that level of violence, I don't know that it can really expect its citizens to follow suit. You know?
This gets even easier. Is the justifications for the death penalty are 100% religious. You can find secularists who support the death penalty, but the string of thought that they are subscribing to stems from religion. And I'm a religious person. People know that I'm an active member in the Christian community, um, despite my wheelbarrow full of gripes about it.
So it's
But the
interesting because you
only
have a very open mind, a very scientific, objective mind, which is
yeah,
very interesting. I'm not saying that religious people can't be like that. I know plenty of
yeah,
religious people that are,
it's
but
rare. It's
it
rare.
is it's rarer for sure, for
Yeah,
sure.
of
Yeah,
course. Yeah. But so I appreciate it. That's what I go for. But you can look at the other countries that practice the death penalty, and you can see if you want to be on that list, right? So you got Yemen, you got Afghanistan, you got Iraq, you got Pakistan, you got Russia, you have North Korea, China, and I think the most civilized of them all is South Vietnam, or my bad, Vietnam. Vietnam, I mean, there's certainly others on that list. Vietnam is kind of the most sane out of all those that you might want to be like. Oh, and of course, America. But speaking from the perspective of America, so what other countries on that list sound delightful, right? Oh, my bad, I forgot Somalia in there as well. Who wants their country to be like Somalia? Who who in the world wants their country to be like Chad or South Sudan? No one. And it's not that the death penalty makes those countries, but it's weird. Those are the countries that practice it. You're not seeing Germans practice the death penalty. You're not seeing the UK practice the death penalty. You're not seeing even Mexico or Canada practice the death penalty. We see places that are ruled by theocrats and barbarians, and then and then Vietnam, and then America. And it's purely religious. This is the eye for an eye. This is earlier I was speaking about that the narrative that speaks really good is rather than look at this as a complex issue of maybe they don't no one controls who their family that they're born into. No one determines the societal norms that they're born into. No one determines their chemistry. You don't get to control whether you have a tumor on your amygdala. That's all out of your hands. But people don't want to factor that in. It's easier to have a evil versus good narrative, and we're killing the evil. These people are a lot of people here in America. People that are close to me would say most of the people we kill on the death penalty, kill with the death penalty, they have demons. They're possessed by demons. These are cute narratives. They're fun. They're exciting, and they make us look very righteous. But yeah, all of the justifications from the death penalty stem from religious thought. And like I said, all it takes is for us to say objectively that idea is wrong, regardless of what we think. Yeah.
The saddest part about it as well is that, like, I remember hearing this a few years ago. Like, there's this argument made that whenever you take a life, you take a part of yourself. That, like, we're
Yeah.
all interconnected. And you always hear people that have taken a life talk about this as well. They always say that, like,
Yeah.
a part of your soul dies. Well, regardless of what your beliefs are, it will change you as a human being. It will change you.
Mm-hmm.
When I see things like the death penalty, like, and don't get me wrong, there are evil, horrible human beings in this
Mm-hmm.
world,
Yeah.
like just
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
vile
Absolutely.
scum of the earth, right? But
Yeah. Absolutely.
we spoke about like human rights last time,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a controversial viewpoint, but I will share it. I think that all
Mm-hmm.
humans, regardless of their actions, deserve human rights because by
Mm-hmm.
definition, they are exclusive to everyone. Like they're available to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think once you start making an argument like, well, human rights are only, for certain people, then it's not human rights anymore. It's rights for certain peoples, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I understand because people have often thrown it in my face and said things like, well, if it was your family, X, Y, Z, you'd feel differently. And I'm like, yeah, I probably would because it's
Yeah.
personal and personal issues affect your judgment and they do
Wait, are you
change
telling me
things.
if you are you telling me that if you thought differently, they would still be worthy of human rights,
I'm
regardless of what you
saying,
think? Are you telling me it's not a matter of opinion?
I'm saying that if someone took like a family member's life from me,
Mm-hmm.
I would feel very passionately about that. I'd be angry, I'd be upset, and it would cloud my judgment and my ability to commit to those feelings and opinions that I have. It would change it. But then there's these amazing human beings. You see it sometimes. There's a famous one that really stands out to me. It's the father of this guy who'd been murdered hugs the murderer in court and forgives him on the
That's
spot.
that is the brother of the name's escaping me. Yeah, yeah, happened
But
here in America. Yeah, this
he hugged him, and it was a
yeah,
beautiful, tragic moment, and they're both crying. And
yeah.
I
It was a
think,
woman. It was a female cop. Yeah.
and I just look at that. There's been a few in America where that's happened, and I look at
Yeah.
that, and I'm
Yeah.
like, that to me is like the apex of human achievement right there. The ability to
Mm-hmm.
forgive someone who has taken something that you love more than life itself away from you. You know, you have every right to be angry, to be frustrated, to be upset, to resent them, to want revenge, all of these things. And yet you put all of that
Mm-hmm.
aside and you say, I forgive you. I forgive you. And this is a deeply religious
I'm
thing.
looking up the.
Um, but it's heavy, man. It's really it's a lot. And I just think like we're deeply flawed as a race, as you know, in every sense. And people often forget this. We get too caught up in shouting at each other and going, "This is right, this is wrong, X, Y, Z." Even in society now, if you look
Yeah.
at like things like cancel culture and
Yeah.
things you see online, it's I've heard people describe it as like a modern day what's the word? Pitchfork, modern day mob thing, you know.
Just real quick to confirm, yeah, that was Amber Geiger, who was a police officer and murdered this guy's brother, cold-bloodedly in his apartment. And but yeah, he got up and he hugged her, and but his reasoning for that wasn't his um he basically he quoted he was a religious man, and he said, you know, Christ forgave me, and he forgives all of us, and he calls me to forgive you, and I forgive you, and he wants I want you to know that I forgive you, but more importantly than me forgiving you is Christ forgives you, and I hope you know his forgiveness and his love and his peace. um and it was beautiful. Yeah, but you continue. I guess remember that was a couple years ago. That was a big deal, and so sorry to interrupt, but yeah, go on.
My album is called Second Chances, and there's a few reasons why. But one of the reasons is that I believe in second chances. I believe in forgiveness. I believe that no human being is perfect. Um, and this is why I forgive people pretty quickly. Trust and things like that, that's different. If you break trust, it can take a lifetime to build that up again. You may never be fully trusted again. But forgiveness is easy, I think, in a lot of cases. Maybe not so much in some of the ones we've discussed. That's a lot harder. It takes a very strong will and human being to achieve that. But I think it's important for your soul, for who you are. Like you, anytime I've forgiven someone and truly meant it and forgave them for them wronging me, I felt like a wave of relief, like a weight had been
Mm,
lifted off my
yeah,
shoulders.
yeah.
And because it's you carry that stuff with you, it will destroy you.
Animosity is heavy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like hate
Yeah.
and revengeance and stuff like that. It eats away at you,
Mhm.
and very rarely does getting revenge actually give you anything. You know, in some instances it might, but in a lot of instances it's just cold and empty, and you're left kind of feeling darker afterwards. The world seems a bit grayer.
Mm, yeah.
I think about times when people have forgiven me because I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. Like you're a hero in some people's story, you're a villain in others. Everyone knows you differently. Everyone thinks of you differently. I just try to be a good person. I'm not religious. I'm undecided on a lot of things. I've said before I don't have
Hmm.
a committed thing when it comes to politics or morals and ethics, or I just believe what I believe, and maybe to a fault. I don't know. I just try to be a good person. I try to be a good man. I try to do right
Yeah.
by other human beings. I think
Yeah.
that one thing in many cases we can agree on is that like doing the right thing and doing right by other human beings is something maybe we can all agree on. And You
Yeah,
know, I
I want to be mindful of your time. I could talk forever, but my room, I only have it for an hour, and I want to make sure you're able to get to some of your points there that you have written down. Um,
I
I
still
only have one
didn't.
hour left, well,
I can
we got
tell you
time,
now, I've still not asked you a single question I have on this piece of paper.
well, I'll make this comment, and then I want you to go ahead and hit
Close
me
it
with
off.
one of your points. But I'll say, well, no, again, I'll talk until they tell me I got to leave. But um, I want to say, I don't think there's ever really a problem with moral epistemology, how we know or what we know. I think that's for the most part generally agreed on. I think you can find atheists, you can find Muslims, Christians, whatever. For the most part, most of these groups will say murdering innocent people is wrong, stealing is wrong, and even if these backwards theocrats say we need to throw battery acid in a woman's face, even if they say that, they know it is wrong, and
Mm.
I think a good example is North Korea. Drastically mistreats its citizens, but if they and if they didn't know that was wrong, they awkwardly spend a lot of money and a lot of time covering it up. I mean, why cover up something you don't know is wrong? So they spend
This
a lot of time
is
putting on a good perception now.
that is a
But
like the best point I've heard in such a long time. Yeah, if you
it's
genuinely think something's not wrong, why would you attempt to hide it?
yeah, why hide it?
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so I don't think a moral
interesting.
epistemology is really the problem. That's of course we need to make sure we're all on the same page, but um, I think the problem is moral ontology, right? What grounds its existence? And so you and I, Christian, might agree on morals for the most part. We think killing innocent people is wrong. Some wars are just, some wars are not just. You should probably not be polygamous. That's probably going to be detrimental to someone's emotions there. We might agree on pretty much all these points. The problem is and this is one of the sad parts about society is we never really get pressed on why we believe what we believe, right? Why? And that's where ontology, the grounding, the being, the existence of the subject, really matters. We might not have a reason to learn why we believe what we believe. That's one of the, earlier we were talking about sort of the lack of standards of what a good life is today. The justifications for why we live the life we live is kind of evaporated. And I would urge you, it doesn't need to be done here live on this podcast, but through your days, um, sort of ask yourself, why, where do these ideas come from? Where do they come from? And why do I subscribe to these ideas? Right. Really sit with the cliche Wolfenstein Man in the High Castle ideas. If I was raised to think differently, if I was raised to think killing Jews is right, why would it still be wrong? And so where and if the moral law does exist outside of my brain, if it does exist outside of just my chemicals bouncing around, if it does exist outside of that, where does it exist? Right? What holds it steady? Right? What holds it firm, regardless of what we think? I mean, just maybe that's a good, fun philosophy 101 exercise is sort of just beginning to ask those questions, right? And that's what a lot of philosophy is seeking to answer is where and what and why um, is the nature of these beliefs.
One thing I find very interesting is how children interact with each other on a playground. If you've ever watched it, it's fascinating,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Mm-hmm.
children are open. Children are not burdened, if you like, with society. They just play. They don't care. I mean, if they're different, they don't care unless their parents have like instilled these beliefs in them. They just play. And so you see children from all creeds and colors and backgrounds playing with each other because they're just like, hey, let's play. My point with this is you're not born to hate. You get taught to hate. You get taught to be
Mm-hmm.
fearful of things. You get taught to have the opinions and beliefs and etc. that you have. One reason I've always kept an open mind to everything is that I refuse to let society tell me I have to think a certain way or I have to be a certain way. I actively make it my mission to rebel against that because I think that there should be a freedom to just be who you are. But I will say this. I am a strong believer in morals and ethics, and that will be what today's podcast is because it's not really been about philosophy. We've covered some philosophy for sure,
I
but
mean,
it's been
ethics
more
is
about
a is
morals
a
and
is a
ethics.
specific branch of philosophy.
It
That's
is.
ethics is all philosophy.
You're spot on. But the next time I have you on my show, if you're open to that, I want to just we
Always.
won't talk. I will just spit questions at you. Some and
Huh.
you will like these questions. I promise you.
Well, hey, we still got some time. Why don't you just shoot one or two my way?
um, I kind of want to save it for next time.
Okay.
Which
Well, we
I
can we
know my
can.
audience is going to be like, ah, come on, Christian. But like, we've given you
Uh,
2 hours of morals and ethics with Jack, and it's been. Do you know? Okay, I'll say this. I love talking to you because it does challenge my mind. And lately, I've had a lot of people challenging me, and it's been really fucking annoying. But I do think it's important because you do need to be challenged on some level and to think about these things. Like you said,
mhm.
beliefs come from somewhere. And it's important to question why. Where do these beliefs come from? Where do these morals and ethics come from? Like, why do I think the way that I do? Why do I present the way that I do in the world? Question yourself, question society, question all things. Never stop asking questions. At school, I was told you
Mhm.
ask too many questions. And I'm glad that I didn't listen to that because I've been doing a podcast for 5 years. That's what I do. I ask questions, I question things. I'll never stop questioning. And I think that's probably the best lesson I could leave all of you with is
If I
question
can
everything.
if I can say one more if I can say one final string of words here is I can't tell you what to do, and I'm glad I can't tell you what to do, but I can only encourage you or give my perspective.
Mm,
I would urge you to consider the idea that committing to a line that society gives you is not bad, inherently bad. Right? I was raised in a society where I was taught that all genders get political equality. I was raised in a society that said, you're innocent until you're proven guilty. I was raised in a society where I had certain laws and certain rights that given to me by my state. Maybe these aren't universal, but they're given to me by my nation, by the United States. And I'm glad I subscribed to these. I'm glad I was brainwashed by that idea, and I was particularly compelled by them. And those ideas, maybe they were grounded in objective morals, but I wouldn't encourage anyone to take a stance of resistance. And so, we want to be able to live in a world where society can direct its citizens to believe certain things. And we should be weary of abuse, and we should be skeptical. It's always healthy to have a particular amount of skepticism with the media, with any institution. Skepticism is not unhealthy. I have skepticism with everything, but I would maybe challenge or maybe point out that the idea that I'm not going to let society tell me I'm not going to get boxed in. I'm not going to get boxed into a religion. I'm not going to get boxed into a certain culture. I'm not going to get boxed into a certain way of life. I'm not going to get the resistance to being boxed in is a way of life itself that society tells us. The intellectual revolutionary, the hyper free thinker, that is a ideological product that is sold to us. And the resistance to subscribe to a doctrine of belief is a subscription to a doctrine of belief itself that is advertised and characterized online and everywhere else. And like I mentioned, it's always healthy to maintain skepticism. I think eventually myself and you and everyone else, we should eventually commit to a particular doctrine. Right? We should commit to one. And we can improve it, we can amend it, we can question it, we can be slightly skeptical of it. But I don't see anything wrong with eventually coming down and saying, "Yeah, here's my ideas, here's my beliefs." And but like I said, I'm not fully there, maybe you're not fully there, but I think we should drop our hesitancy to commit to certain norms.
Thank you very much for being on the show, Jack. It's been an absolute pleasure picking your brains again. Um, and this is how I know it's been brilliant because, again, I've not asked you any of my questions. We've just talked and flied through it and made a very compelling argument, I think, for moral and ethics in general. We've explored a lot of great topics, some heavy topics. Yeah, you're really brilliant at what you do, the way you make arguments, the way you build them up, the way you challenge. I implore everyone listening to the show to go check out his Substack. I'll make sure it's included in the comments. Check out his podcast and everything in between. And I look forward to talking to you again on the show. Hopefully, you'll come back.
Third time's the charm, right? Third time. Yeah.
I mean, I'd love that. If you're game, I'm game.
Yeah, yeah. I'm always available. Yeah.
Just let me know. Thank you so much for being on the
Yeah.
show. Thank you to all the listeners of Christian Reeve Podcast. I hope you love this show as much as I did. Be safe, be well, and I'll see you in the next one.